Frank Hopkins burst onto the literary scene in 2013 with his novel Unplanned Choices. A fiction novel, Unplanned Choices delves into the world of women's rights in the 1960s and 70s.
My first novel, Unplanned Choices, was set in the 60s and 70s during the time period of the civil rights movement, struggle for abortion, women's movement, Vietnam War. And it was a story of a man and a woman who met in college and fell in love, and she got pregnant. And so the title Unplanned Choices is, what is she going to do? Well, she decided she should continue her education, her career. She got an illegal abortion because abortion was not legal at that time period. Unfortunately, she died. And so the rest of the story is the impact of her death on her family and friends, the abortionist who was caught, and the New York City Police Department, particularly one policeman who was a little too involved in the case. So that's a serious, real issue that is even alive today politically because of what's happening in the last couple of elections.
After Unplanned Choices, Hopkins penned The Opportunity, about corruption in federal government contracting. His latest book is a departure from the more serious earlier works.
My latest work is a collection of short stories, which is a departure from my earlier work, which is 2 novels. And the title of the collection of short stories is First Time, and it refers to an event that happens to everybody in their life, but it's the first time it happens to the major character in the book. I've always been writing short stories, and to join critique groups, usually you have to submit a short story to get accepted to make sure that you could write. And I just had enough of them, and I realized, hey, there's some unifying themes here, I could get them published, so I did.
A trained academician, Hopkins goes through an in-depth planning process before beginning to write.
So I start with an outline, and then I get an annotated outline, which is more detailed outlines for each chapter, and they become the scenes that I'm going to write. And for each scene and chapter, I put those in the first 2 rows of a spreadsheet, and then the remaining rows contain all the key information that I have to make sure I'm consistent, like the time of the scene, who's in the scene, the setting of the scene, which helps me describe basically the time period and integrates the scene. And also, usually the first sentence, if I can get that, because you want to catch the reader and get them hooked. Then a summary of the scene, and then the last transition sentence. And once I have all that information, I can really just start copying that onto a word processor and start writing.
That type of approach means that Hopkins can continue writing if he finds himself stuck at one point in the novel.
When you have that kind of approach, if you get stuck on one scene, you just move, 3 chapters up, 4 chapters down. Then one of the nice things about that approach, if you make a change, which you're always going to do as you write a novel and get new insights, you can change the scenes previous to make them all consistent throughout the book. But if you're writing just from the seat of your pants without any structure, I find that very hard to do.
Writing approaches and the different structures used by writers are some of the topics discussed at the Creatures, Crimes, and Creativity Con, which is where BCPL talked with Hopkins. The annual event is one of the top writers' conferences on the East Coast, and the 2017 con will feature New York Times best-selling thriller author Peter Blauner. Details can be found on their website, creaturescrimesandcreativity.com.